I'm Jeffrey Clark, and this is 90s Youth Life. So long story short, Kidsongs was a media franchise with songs that made music videos for kids, and those videos were made into a TV show in the 80s. That show was revived in the 90s on PBS, and I had somebody on from that show, Chris Aguilar, a few weeks ago. He posted the interview. He was very enthusiastic about it. He tagged a couple of his co-stars in that. One of them was Hassan Nicholas, and I did an interview with him. And this is that interview. He's coming to me from Google Hangouts, and hopefully our technology holds up this time because we've had trouble connecting. So Hassan, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, you obviously are happy to be here because when Chris posted my interview with him to Facebook, you were somebody who was very enthusiastic about the fact that this interview had taken place. So obviously you must be very enthusiastic about your memories from your time on Kidsongs. Am I right?
Oh, definitely. Kidsongs, that whole time period was probably one of the most greatest moments of my life. Not even just my youth, but just like my life thus far. So a lot of memorable experiences there, a lot of good times, a lot of shared memories with Chris and the rest of the cast. So yeah, I definitely wanted to show some love when I saw that interview by Chris there.
Now, Kidsongs isn't exactly what you would call as memorable in the 90s as some of the other things that go on, but whenever you hear somebody talk about that particular franchise, what goes through your mind?
I think about my youth. I think a lot about acting in general, because during that time was when I was most active in the entertainment industry, and Kidsongs was like the biggest job that I had ever worked on. So it was like a really impactful period in my life, and it wasn't a blur, but it kind of went by really fast because obviously at the time I was of school age, so there was a lot of times where I wasn't even in school, I was on the set. So I just kind of think about that like routine of going to class and having to get homework from my teachers to take to like the set teacher, and just being on set all day and just going through these the routine of filming Kidsongs. But the most like memorable, greatest experiences in my life. So I'm really appreciative that I even had that opportunity.
Well, that's great to know. But let's start at the beginning. Kidsongs, like I said before, it started off as a series of videos in the mid-'80s, and it was eventually made into a TV show, and the videos kept coming out after that first TV show was made. Were you familiar with Kidsongs before you even had the chance to audition for it?
Familiar with it, but I wasn't like a watcher, because Kidsongs aired on like PBS, like those types of stations. I was more like a WB, KTLA, like I was kind of more watching programming on the mainstream channels. Saw like old episodes with the cast did prior, so all of us had like a general idea of Kidsongs, but I personally wasn't too familiar with it.
Well, how did you get interested in performing? Because obviously you couldn't have been on Kidsongs if you didn't have the performance bug in you. So how did that come about?
Right, so I'll try to keep this story short, but like showcase at my school, at my grade school at the time. And some of the parents of the kids that went to this school were in the entertainment industry, so I think they had like a part to do with this little showcase. So, me being at that age, like I loved the attention and just performing for people. I would perform, quote unquote, for family members all the time. So at this little showcase, I went up and we did some like audition or something like that. And it was like really well received. And I guess someone got in touch with my mother from that little showcase, and they're like, hey, you might want to consider putting him into acting. And from there, it was, locating an agent and taking acting classes, and I caught the bug right there and just kind of dove headfirst into the entertainment industry.
What was your first foray into acting?
My first foray, yikes, it's taking me back. It might have been a Peace commercial. that I did. That might have been like the first gig that I did as like a professional actor. I think though, like I would have to really think about that. But Kidsongs was probably among the first set of jobs that I got.
So how did you first hear about the fact that they were casting for new Kidsongs Kids as well as a TV show?
So I had this agent, I had a really awesome agent that really specialized in like working with kids. So they were like pretty much a kids talent agency. I got the gig. So, periodically, we're sent auditions, to go on. And Kidsongs happens to be one of those auditions that I went out for. And I went my audition and they liked me, they called me back. And 2 or 3 rounds of me like going back and auditioning for the producers. And then I landed the gig. But there was 2 separate, so you had like the Kidsongs, the TV show, and then you also had Kidsongs, the music videos, right? Which was sold like on a VHS tape. So it was like 2 separately. Because I was on the TV show and I guess I did well there, I was bumped up to the videos. So I had like a long little history with Kidsongs, which was for that being like one of my first acting gigs.
Do you remember anything about the actual audition process? Were you told to act? Were you told to sing? Did they interview you? What exactly happened during those auditions?
Well, the first audition was for the TV show, so it was pretty much just like the script, and just going off of the script. First thing that you said, like, did I have to sing or dance? Because the music videos, obviously, if anyone has seen those, there is dancing, right? So, what may or may not be known about the cast I was with for Kidsongs is that pretty much everyone had like dance background, and some maybe were singers as well. I came in there pretty much like that went, so I didn't have any like prior dance experience. I'm not a singer, so it was a little difficult for me. So when we did the auditioning for like the music video portion, I remember there was like the choreographers and they were teaching us routines, and I remember just kind of like being in the back, like just trying to like, keep up. So it was like really challenging, but thankfully like the TV show was just like the script, so it was no like, let's see you do this dance routine, because being intimidated, and I don't know if I would have made it, but afterwards, after being on the show and just having to go through that anyway, like having to learn little dance routines and help step my game up, so that when I did audition for the music videos, I was kind of more prepared.
How did you realize that you got the gig?
Well, I got the call from my agent at the time, and she said, landed the job. So obviously, that's like really exciting at the time, because as an actor, obviously, you want to work. So, and you want to get jobs. So when I got the call from the agent, they said, I booked Kidsongs. It was like, all right, celebration time, and just like a really happy moment, because staying like where it was, maybe a commercial spot or like a guest spot on TV show, this was like an actual cast member. So it was a pretty big deal for myself and for my mom at the time, who was like there with me, like, taking me to the audition, and all the callbacks and all of that. So it was just really exciting just to those words like, hey, like you booked the job, So definitely good memories there.
Now, let me just move away from Kidsongs for just a moment, because you mentioned the bit roles that you had as opposed to being a regular cast member. You were in a TV movie called Father and Scouts that had Bob Saget and Brian Bonsall. You were in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You were on Hang Time. So what were those experiences like for like one-shot experiences as opposed to like being on a regular show?
For me personally, I was thankful for every experience, because again, like you gotta take this is happening during like school, like the school year, and here I am like on like meeting, like I said, I'm like going out to different locations that I've never been to before. I'm just was like living the dream, because I'm having these experiences that a lot of people, so it was just really awesome. And just being on the set, just being able to travel to different studios, and it was just on Warner Brothers Studios, or I was just at like NBC, or and just kind of seeing that behind the scenes was just like really, really cool to me. It made me really fall in love with the industry, and I knew that like if I didn't want to always be an actor, I would want to be involved somehow, like behind the scenes as like a technical director, something like that. It piqued my interest in the entertainment industry, just in general.
So, like I said, those were bit parts for you, but Kidsongs was your regular thing. So let's just go back to the beginning of that. You got the job, and from what I understand, what Chris told me was that they interviewed you guys, and that was how they determined what role on the show's crew that you were going to play. So do you remember anything about that?
Very vaguely. I remember that at one point I was the cameraman, and I think there's some clips that you can see maybe like in the intro, if I believe, where you'll see me actually on the camera. And then I graduated, quote unquote, up to, I believe it was like a technical director or something of that nature. So, but they did, try to match our personalities with roles on the show. And the cool thing about Kidsongs and working on a set was that we kind of did learn a little bit about the technical side. So, the quote unquote cameraman, those were real cameras, and it would give me the opportunity to like actually shoot like kind of real footage. Obviously not like a whole episode or something, and they may have like deleted whatever I filmed, but I still got to play around like with these real equipment, and they kind of showed me how it worked. And then the technical director, and standing next to the producer and the director, they even would take us upstairs to where the actual directors and everyone would sit, and we got to kind of play with their equipment as well. So it was kind of interesting that we had that opportunity to do that. I think that my personality did match my role on the show, because like the host was like probably would have been a little intimidating for me at the time. So I was definitely comfortable with my role on the show.
How much did you know about being a technical director when you first realized that you were going to be that role during your first year there?
Oh, like I had no idea. Even though I had been on like a set before, or like I didn't really pay attention to all of that, but really no prior knowledge. Kind of what the technical director did, what the cameraman. Well, obviously I know what the cameraman did, but all the other different roles that were there. So it was like, okay, these are these show, But we also kind of had to. We were talking about, in a sense, to make it look more authentic. So. But I came in there with like no prior knowledge, but I left going like, okay, this is like cool, I could do this, if I wasn't acting, like this is cool.
You were the technical director for that first season, but then you moved up to the floor during your second season on that show. How did that process happen?
Well, I guess like the producers decided like we're gonna just kind of, switch around roles. So I went to like floor, cameraman, different positions like that. I don't know why the decision was made. I think everybody kind of got shifted around, and I don't really remember like being bothered by that. It was just like a change of scenery, but I definitely liked, sitting in the booth alongside, I believe Kevin was next to me, and I think Mark was on the other side of me. I liked that position, I guess, the best when I was the technical director.
Did you have a good relationship with your co-stars, particularly during that first year, your partners at the so-called board that you were operating?
Oh yeah, definitely. We were all like one family. I mean, you can imagine we're there like all day, day after day. There's lots of rehearsals, there's lots of downtime. What you guys see is like, 30 minutes or however long the show was, but, there's a lot of time spent just working together. So when the camera was off, there was a lot of like playing around and like, we're kids at the time, so we're just kind of enjoying every moment. But it was definitely like a tight-knit group, and we had like our little crew there, there in the booth. So yeah, you could say that we were pretty close.
Are there any memorable stories on set that you would like to share? I
mean, there's so many I can imagine. One thing that kind of sticks out to me, which it's probably not even interesting to another person that's like not familiar, but like there's a thing that happens on set where you just, and everyone's experienced this, where you just like get the giggles. Like it's like you just been on the set so long, like you're rehearsing these lines over and over, you've gone through so many takes, and it's almost like you're so exhausted that you just find everything is just funny, you know? So like, and I remember one time, I just got the giggles like really, really bad, and it was like one of the last scenes, and like I just could not stop laughing, like, and it was like I was laughing at nothing. We were just laughing at literally just nothing, but like when one person laughs, it like just sets off another thing. And I remember Kevin like saying his lines, and I'm like trying to hold in my laughter, and I just like bust out laughing, and one of the producers comes down, is like, we gotta stop filming. Like they take me off the set, like into one of the rooms, you know, and she's like, you need to calm down. Like what is going on? Like we like need to wrap this up, like get it together, you know. And I'm like, all right, like let me try, like you know. So I remember that was like probably the only time where they like got upset with me. I just could not stop laughing, and yeah, but I got it together.
Well, that's great. I have a couple of questions about some of your particular shots on the show. You were one of 4 people who are seen at the very beginning of every show, which is to say, one of 4 kids who are actually running into the TV station asking if the Kidsongs kids can use the studio. How, out of about a dozen actors per season, were you selected to take part in that opening sequence?
I actually do remember that day filming that. The selection process for that was, I was already, at that point, I was, already a staff. I was already one of the crew. And since I guess they figured I would be like a mainstay in the show, since I guess they liked me, so I was always, kept for that part. I always felt confident that they would bring me back for the different seasons, I guess you would call them, for Kidsongs, just because I think I had like a good rapport with the producers, and they liked the work. So, but yeah, the opening scene, I remember that day pretty clearly, and I remember just having to do that take over and over again. But they tried to pretty much keep it consistent as far as like the kids in that intro scene, as well as, who was going to be in the show as well.
You say you had to do multiple takes, and for those who aren't familiar, the very beginning is them literally running down the sidewalk and into the station. So I have to ask, were you exhausted from doing it so many times?
Not exhausted, but just like, okay, can we do something else now? Like, because that's the funny part. Like, everyone just sees the finished product, but like, we probably did that take maybe 30 times, and it's like, just doing that one take, running down, having to keep up the same energy, and it can get a little draining. But it's expected. It just comes with the territory. But I do remember that day, definitely.
It looks like kind of an overcast day. Was it overcast or cloudy or something? Because the sun wasn't exactly shining during that shot. Do you remember what the weather was like during that day?
The reason why it was overcast was because it was like early in the morning.
Oh.
A lot of our call times, you have to start like early, and that's one of the only things that was like really hard for me, because I'm definitely not a morning person. I was always early, so you have to be at set like 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and it's like, So the reason why it was overcast is because we're like starting early in the morning, and as it gets still filming, so again, it's like 30 takes of just running up and down this, and that location was actually near where we actually filmed. It wasn't like a separate location or anything, so it's like pretty accurate as far as how it's depicted on the TV show. But yeah, it was a lot of takes.
Just for the record, I'm not a morning person either. I guess that's why I work at night. But in any event, the other thing I remember about you, at least from watching the program recently online, was that it seemed like towards the end of every episode, not every episode, but at the end of many episodes, you would say that you had baseball practice at the end or after the show. So is there a story behind that? Were you actually a baseball player back then, or was that something they just wrote in?
Not at all. Yeah, that was the stuff they wrote in. And there was a few things like that got like wrote in the show. In particular, there was one show we were talking about ethnicity or like cultural backgrounds. For the episode, I was Jamaican, which is funny because my dad is actually from Haiti, so it's like a different island, but you know, still Caribbean, but different language, totally different culture. But I think Jamaican was like more like maybe resonate with that over like someone from Haiti. So, but that was just like one example of the stories that the producers would kind of craft for us, you know. But no, I was not a baseball player. Suck at baseball, and I'm not that good at it. I was more like a football, basketball kind of person. So, sorry to burst your bubble about that one.
Well, Chris already burst my bubble about the fact when he was filling in for you one day, and he said that board actually didn't work. So, you're not the first Kidsongs kid to spoil my illusion from my childhood, but I'll cut you some slack. How much of real life was actually written into the show, or was it mostly scripted?
It was mostly scripted. There was really like a dichotomy, like there's two worlds, the world of Kidsongs, the produced Kidsongs, like what happens when they off. And a lot of that real world translate over into the scripts. There may have been some instances where maybe the producers would try to put in some like personal stuff that was, from real life, but mostly it was scripted. It's fun because there was a lot going like behind the scenes. You know, you can only imagine working with such a large group of people. There's always going to be stuff happening. You know, good, bad, ugly, whatever. You know, little dramas here and there. I mean, it's basically like a family at that point. So that's kind of the side that normal public won't see because, you know, we didn't walk around, we didn't have any phone cameras or anything like that to take like behind the scenes footage, but it was definitely kind of interacting in two different worlds. So, but it was cool nonetheless.
Who did you have the best relationship with between your two casts that you were a part of?
I would say Chris was up there. We were all cool. Like, it also would help like deepen these relationships was all of our moms were there. You know, like the parents. So all the parents like got close. But I would say like after it ended, and even during, I know Megan's mom and my mom, and Chris's mom, Maria, my mom, they were close. We continue keeping in contact even after the show had ended. I know for the music videos, I remember like Gus and I, we were really tight because Gus was like into inline skating, you know, at the time, and I was like really into that. And like he was, I think on the side, like he used to do like not performing, but I think he was kind of semi-sponsored or something like that, like as a kid, to do like, you know, inline skating tricks and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. I remember Kyle, who was in the video, he was a tall, lanky guy. He was really cool, like behind the scenes, funny dude. Like it was just, everybody had their own personalities, and it was awesome. Like I can't say anything bad about anyone. Like we all were really cool.
Now, Question Time was the interview segment on the show, and it's ironic that I'm talking about an interview segment on an interview. But did you have any favorite guests that came on the studio? Because some were famous, some not so much. But were there any guests that really stood out to you during your time there?
Oh yeah, definitely. Raven's on the show, and that was, I still think about that day. When Raven Simone, I think for me that was like the most kind of person that came, because you know she was coming from the Cosby Show and stuff like that. So like, oh wow, that's Raven Simone. So she came on the show to perform her song "Hip Hop Teddy Bear" at the time. Remember that, but so seeing Raven Simone and then kind of seeing like how she kind of grew in her career afterwards, and I was like, wow, like I actually met her, like I have a picture with her, like when she was like a little girl. It was pretty cool. That might have been one of those moments where I was a little like kind of starstruck, like, oh wow, like this is kind of like a famous person here, you know. So that was good. is one of my memories working on Kidsongs.
So was that your favorite episode, or were there any other episodes that were your favorite that you remember?
Favorite episodes? That was definitely one of them. I have a favorite episode because for me, I kind of go off of like experience. So like show to show, it was kind of like the same to me, but it was more like what kind of happened outside of that. So like when we transitioned from doing the TV show and going to shooting the music videos, I remember being on, we were on the lot for Universal Studios. That probably is like my favorite memory of Kidsongs just in general, because I in Universal Studios and we were filming the barbershop quartet scene, and just really enjoyed that day. I just remember just really like taking a step back and being like, wow, like this is so cool that I'm able to do this and spend my youth singing and performing, you know. So that was like really cool.
Yeah,
that would probably be a favorite experience.
That's great. So yeah, let's talk about the music videos for a little bit. Obviously, you're not confined to a TV show. You're going to all these other different locations. You're more out into the open. How much different was the production for you between the TV show and the music videos?
The TV show, for me, it felt like just more structured as far as, I mean, obviously both have structure, but the TV show, it was just kind of like, I know what's going to happen. The script, memorize your lines, that's about it. Or when we transitioned to doing the music videos, it was like way more intense because now it's like we have a script, now you gotta memorize choreography, you gotta memorize song lyrics, and now we're dealing with like different locations, you know, the whole baby animal deal series. So like we're introducing animals, like, so it was just like all these different elements, which was really cool because it was just a lot different, but it was a lot more work. And for me, like the challenge was like the choreography and the dancing, because like I didn't have a strong formal background in that, and it was a little intimidating because a lot of the kids, you had to have like some dance background. So I was like really lucky, like I kind of made it, and they allowed me to like kind of slide through and be a part of that. Work hard to try to get the choreography together, and thankfully I was able to like make it, you know. So but the process was like totally different, a little bit more intimidating, just a lot more work, longer days, more wardrobe changes, location changing all the time. So definitely like a totally different experience than doing the TV show, which was just like way more kind of day after day, like predictable, like you know what's gonna happen.
How patient were they with somebody who, by your own admittance, was not very good at dancing? Because they must have had somebody who was really willing and able to teach somebody how to dance properly.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The pace, well, you know, there were some times where like we would have to like stop at the class and be like, okay, like you in the back, like take some time to like you need to clear your head or something, because like it's not sticking with you. And if you just like couldn't just do it, like if it just wasn't working, they just maybe not put you in that scene. So again, like I would like be in the back because that's where I felt comfortable, and I knew I wasn't like a strong dancer, so I preferred to like kind of stay in the back and like hide. But it definitely, just to me, it motivated me to like really try my hardest and do well. After a while, you know, you get used to it because it's expected. You know, you're gonna have to learn some new choreography, and again, with practice comes you get a little better at it. So I didn't have to worry too much about landing the choreography, and our instructors, I mean, they already know who we are and everything. So I think they were patient for the most part, but there was an expectation that you're going to be able to pick this up. And I remember, like, if I can remember clearly, having a talk with my mom or the producers or all three of us about like, hey, like, are you sure you can be able to like keep up? One of those things that was there and that was critical to being a part of the crew, but I made it. So
Obviously, you had at least enough of a passable experience to take part in at least some of the dances. But it's very interesting. You talked about sometimes they would take kids out of the scene, and based on watching the videos, not every kid was in every song. So what do you remember about the selection process as to who would take part in what number?
That's a good question. I can't really remember what the process was. I think it was kind of already decided. I just know for like routines where the choreography required more like advanced, they would put that person closely. I do remember like for the baby animal segment, one of the cast members was like deathly terrified of puppies. and I really remember this clearly. Like there was one of the songs that called for this basket or something full of like these golden retriever puppies, and she was like not having it, like it's like I can't do it, you know. So like I remember either out or they kind of had to position her like away from the puppies, or being that she just was like nervous around animals kind of made it, because like that whole segment was baby animals, you know. So there was like puppies on set one day, another day we had like baby tigers and lions. I remember we had like chimpanzees were on set, you know. That made me a little nervous. But they kind of pretty much took what our personality was and our dancers and singers and kind of placed us, you know, appropriately.
You know, I kind of remember about my interview with Chris was he was talking about the baby animal video, and he was holding the bunny, and he was like outwardly like really saying how cool it was, but inside he was freaking out over it. So how did you feel about working with animals? Because, you know, I asked this to him. They say that the worst thing you can do in show business is work with babies and work with animals. How much do you think that statement is true?
I think it's true. Yeah, I would agree. It is difficult because, you know, the animals, they don't have the awareness to know like what's happening, right? So they're just kind of like, I personally loved it because like I'm a total animal person. So like when they have the puppies, you know, like I want to hold them. Like, yeah, bring me the tigers. Like, I'll definitely hold the tiger cub. So, you know, I was really excited about that. I grew up without like a dog in the house. I was behind. So like, we're going to the set. There's like all these animals. I'm like freaking out. You know, just like a kid in a candy store. But I remember there having to be like the handlers and all of that, and they had to take like a lot of precautions. Like they like freaked me out because I remember one of them kind of breaking free and just like running around, you know. And if you ever been around like a chimpanzee, this is like, it makes you a little nervous, you know, because it's like you don't know what they're gonna do. So there's a lot of unpredictability with the animals. I remember we would sometimes mess with the animals, and we were getting like chased by like chickens and like, you know, like things like that. And so for that reason, like it's difficult to have like if there's kids also, because kids are just gonna be kids, you know. So we would do like a lot of stuff. There was a particular barn animal scene, and there was barn animals around, right? This rooster, and I'm just like messing with this rooster, and I cornered it, and it like just turned around and charged and just freaked out. I was like, I'm forever scared of birds now because of that.
Well, I guess that's how it's when kids are kids in that moment. But was there ever a moment, and I asked Chris this as well, was there ever a moment when you were on camera and just all happy outside, but you were uncomfortable inside? Chris said during the chewing gum number in the baby animals video that he was uncomfortable being behind a fence for such an extended period. Was there ever a time when you were acting all happy outside, but inside you're like, get me out of here?
Definitely. Yeah, because, you know, again, they're doing tags. Sometimes you just want to be done already, or there were some songs that, like, I don't like this song. Like, you know, I just didn't like the melody or whatever, or I didn't like the particular choreography because maybe it was just kind of too complex for me, or I was getting frustrated in myself because I kept dropping a line. or something. So there's definitely moments where, you know, you have to kind of put on that act. I mean, you are an actor, so hey, you gotta like keep smiling, you gotta like, you know, do your best. But inside, you could be like, I'm just ready to lay down. I just want to like sleep. Or I just want to go to the craft table and like, and Chips Ahoy cookies and like juice, or just go back to the trailer and like lay down for a bit. But it's like, technically it's a job, right? So it just kind of comes with the territory.
I forgot to ask this to Chris in my last interview. He already told me that you guys were lip syncing to playback music, and that's not really a surprise looking back on it now. But were those your voices, or were they other voices that had been recorded already?
Good question. So I do remember that for some songs we would record video. So it would be like a playback of our voices. I don't recall that being the case for like all the songs though. I remember maybe doing that a handful of times. So my singing at the time was like probably mediocre. I don't know if my vocals would have made it. But good question. And so some of those songs I remember recording in an actual studio to know if they actually made it on the actual finished product. I'm not sure. I think it was mostly like kind of previously archived material.
I do remember about the Kidsongs cast, at least looking back at it now, was that they were, and the number of boys and girls, they seemed to be split evenly for the most part, and they were very multi-ethnic, very diverse. So do you think that it didn't really matter who was singing in the studio as long as they could get a diverse group of kids out there onto the set to quote-unquote sing these songs?
Definitely. I definitely think that was have a representation of kids, of people. And I think that was one of the great things about the show, was that you see all of that diversity. Like Filipino, we had like Jewish, Mexican American on there. We had one person was like Russian, Japanese. It was like you had everybody there. It was just really cool to have that exchange, that cultural exchange.
That's really nice. And of course, the other cool thing about working on Kidsongs, on both the videos, at least your videos, and a TV show, was that you got to share the screen with a couple of furry characters known as the Biggles, Billy and Ruby Biggles. So what was your opinion of them, and what do you remember about working with them at that time, even though you were really just talking to a spot when you were filming?
Right. So like the Ruby Biggle, Billy Biggle, it was cool when they were around the suit, the actual people that would play these characters. It's like this big suit, right? This big furry like suit, and it was really cool to just kind of be all with it. But as far as like filming, because these characters were like supposed to be really small, a lot of these literally staring at like a piece of tape marked on a wall or on an object, which had to represent like where the Biggle was standing and where we had to like look. So when they came on set, it was like really cool, but we didn't get to see them, at least I don't remember getting to see them that often. So when they were there, it was like, oh nice, as a mascot is here. But for the most part, we were always just kind of staring and using our imaginations to these Biggles on the set.
Do you ever remember thinking that once this show went to air, that a lot of the audience was probably going to be paying more attention to them than they were to you? Because even though you guys were like the heart and the soul of the show, the Biggles were the mascots of the show, and kids love mascots. So do you ever remember thinking that maybe they might take attention away from you guys since you're supposed to be the stars?
No, I thought we were all just kind of sharing the spotlight all together, and they just kind of complemented the show. But I really felt like, as you said, that the cast itself, we were like the blood of the heart and soul of the show. So I never felt like they kind of would steal away from our shine. It was just kind of like we were just kind of sharing the space, especially since we were there like all the time and we were like really the mainstay. But it really didn't feel that way.
Now, what I remember watching these old episodes again, because obviously I had to do my homework before I did this interview, or my last one, was that for the first 10 or 11 episodes, it was just Billy, but then they brought Ruby in. Was there something in production that made them realize that they needed to add a female Beagle at first? Because, Billy was the only one in the theme song during the first year you were on, and then Ruby came in about a third of the way through. So was that like a decision on the fly when they realized that, hey, it might help to have a female Beagle around too?
Yeah, I think they were just kind of taking a consensus, and I think they just figured, what, we need to introduce a female character that's going to resonate with the little girls that watch the show. So it was like a good balance. And then you could have these two characters that are playing off of each other, because our interaction with the Biggles was kind of limited for technical reasons and just because, how the script was wrote. So introducing like Ruby Biggle was good because it would complement Billy Biggle, and then they could kind of work off of each other. And then now you have a character that can resonate with the girls that watch the show as well. So I think it was something that they realized a little early on, that we're going to have to kind of work another character in the show.
I found it very interesting because up until I watched the shows again recently, I always assumed that Ruby was his younger sister, but then I find out it's actually his older sister. Usually when they introduce a sibling, it's the younger sibling, but Ruby was actually older, so I thought that was a nice twist on it. But since you obviously didn't see them while you were actually filming the show, what was your take on them when you saw the finished product, whereas the piece of paper or tape or whatever you were looking at, it wasn't there, but the Biggles were actually there? I mean, what was it like seeing yourself talking to these furry creatures?
It was funny. It was always, it's like harder than it looks, because especially when you have multiple people in the scene and we're all supposed to be looking at this imaginary character, right? And there's a reference point of like a tape or whatever, some type of marking, but like it's not going to be perfect, right? So you could probably go back and see, well, I'm not looking really eye level, or someone's not really eye level with Billy Biggle or whatever. So it's kind of like interesting, like going back and looking at those scenes. For me, it was always a little nerve-wracking because, again, like there's nothing there. And you have to keep up this intensity, this acting, and if likely there's other cast members with you, and so you're throwing lines at them and then throwing it again at this imaginary figure. It can get a little challenging, but I think they make it work at the end. Seeing the finished product, it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how they do that.
Ruby was just a recurring character during the first season that you were on, but by the second season, she was upgraded to the main cast to the point where she was in the introduction. And also between those seasons, you were one of only a few holdovers from the previous season. So that meant you got to work with a couple of different casts. Did you notice a difference between the two casts that you were a part of?
I mean, obviously, everyone's going to bring different energy, different personalities. By the second round, I was feeling like a veteran, right? So I felt like more comfortable. So I felt more, I guess, more at home, because it's like I've done this before, right? For the new members, they might have felt maybe a little differently because it's like they're coming into new cast that already had kind of previous history or whatever. But for me, it was, it was always seamless and always cool.
Did they tell you to help guide the newbies as to how it works around there?
No, I mean, not explicitly. I'm sure like the moms, the stage moms or whatever, kind of banded together to like show the new moms or the new parents the ropes. But like as far as us, the kids, we were always like welcoming the quote unquote the veterans, we were always welcoming to like the new kids. It was like exciting, it's like, oh cool, like a new cast member. And we wanted everyone to feel comfortable and cool, and I think we all got along for the most part like really well. So there was really never any difficulties as far as like transitioning from cast to cast, and I think everybody felt like really comfortable coming in, even the newbies.
People who have watched both of your season will probably know that the studio looks different from in the second season. background music is slightly different. Even the sing-along portion with the Biggles has been upgraded. So did it feel weird at all that even though it was the same show, it looked different visually and sounded slightly different?
I just felt like we were just kind of growing as a production team, I guess you could say, or as a brand rather. So I was thinking like, I wonder how big, this is going to get. Because we're getting new cast members, because of all those changes that, you just mentioned, I was thinking like at the time, like, oh, I guess perhaps this Kidsongs brand is like really growing. It's starting to grow, pick up steam. Maybe it will get bigger than we would have ever imagined, and I think all of us, maybe to some degree, we're kind of thinking about that, like in the back of our heads, like, what if this is the season or whatever where it kind of takes off, where we kind of get some more attention. And I remember always kind of looking out to see if Kidsongs would appear in any like press, and I remember one time seeing like a write-up about Kidsongs like in like a TV guide or some type of news publication. So as these changes were being made, in the back of my head I was just hoping like, wow, like I hope this like grows even more. Like, what if we could be picked up by Disney, or like, what if we get on like one of the other kind of main stations? That would be like really awesome.
Were you disappointed when certain cast members departed between seasons?
I wasn't disappointed. I think in the opposite, I was like more supportive because everybody was really doing their own thing. Like we would always talk about goals, dreams, future projects, things like that. Not every one of the cast members wanted to continue in acting. Some of them wanted to like go into dance, wanted to like go into singing or modeling, and we all had our passions. So as people kind of departed, did their own thing, it was like cool. Like we're all supportive. We wanted to see each other win and grow and reach success.
Kidsongs was on for one more season that you were not a part of. Did you make the decision on your own to leave, or were there other circumstances that told you it was time to go?
That, if I recall, I don't think was my decision. I think last audition, and I remember auditioning for that last round, right, with the new cast. And I remember thinking like, oh, I still have to audition? Like, like, don't you guys know me already? But I respect that decision, still making me go through the process. I'm sure at the time I would have continued to stay with Kidsongs if, I was given the opportunity to be on the show for another season. So I'm pretty sure it was a decision by the producers, for whatever reason, would have wanted to stay. So all good things come to an end. So that's how it went down.
It's too bad they had to end the way it did, but like you said, all good things must come to an end. But after you left Kidsongs, how did you decide you were going to proceed in show business?
After I left, it was like, okay, what is the next project? So I had Kidsongs under my belt, which people were familiar with. I had a long history there. I was on there quite a while. So moving forward, auditioning for other roles, for other TV shows or commercials or movies, it gave me like a track history. I went in with more experience. I went in with more confidence because it's like, hey, I got like a little track history. So the producers, the casting director, whoever, they could casting me, they could feel a little bit more comfortable saying that like I had already had this experience, of having a recurring role on a show. So I just continued going out there auditioning for roles, and I booked some jobs after that. The Star Trek, I did some daytime soap operas, some commercials, made for TV movies. Just tried to keep the momentum going. And once you get a taste of the acting bug, once you get that, it's like, it's hard to subdue and suppress. You just want to keep exploring and just enjoy just being on set, and that feeling you just can't forget, and it can be addictive. So I definitely tried to push it as far as I could at the time.
What was your favorite post Kidsongs project?
Ooh, well, let's see, my favorites. Probably the Star Trek Deep Space Nine was pretty significant for me, because I'm going under makeup. I'm getting like this alien makeup on me. I'm on the set of Star Trek. It was just, it was one of those jobs where I was like, when I auditioned for it, I was like, this one. It was fun to do. It was like one day, so it was like kind of in and out, but it was like one of my more high-profile jobs that I've done. So I guess one of my proud moments was booking that particular job.
It's very interesting because Chris also had a role in the Star Trek series, and Chris also seemed very fond of that. So it's very interesting how two Kidsongs kids went on to a certain Star Trek series and have fond memories of it. But what are you up to these days?
So these days, I'm not even into acting anymore. I actually stopped professionally acting like right after high school. At the time, I was like missing out on my youth and being a regular high schooler. And then I was just kind of gearing up for college. Like I was really looking forward to that life. And at the time, that was like more important than auditioning. So I went on to go to Loyola Marymount University here in SoCal. I studied Spanish and economics, the nonprofit bug or the save the world bug, you know what I mean? So got involved in a lot of civic engagement and social justice issues of my career in the nonprofit world. So all throughout my life, I've always like been an artist, and acting was just kind of one way of kind of manifesting that fire within me. But once I decided I didn't want to do acting anymore, I started developing more into these visual art elements and pairing that with my work in nonprofit. And that's where I've been ever since. And then I went on to start some businesses. I had a cafe, and I'm just kind of continuing to involve myself in different...
You've worn many different hats since you left acting, but what would you say is your primary focus? You talk about nonprofits, but is that where your primary focus is these days, or are you looking at something else?
No, I would say my primary focus these days has been in social enterprise, which is basically social justice issues, business. So adopting business models to meet social justice issue. I had started a social enterprise cafe a few years back, and one of the main reasons for doing that was to provide healthy food access and to help eliminate food deserts and to target low-income people or less fortunate people and have a place where they can convene and hang out and also be this community center. So I really got heavily involved in pushing civic engagement and doing that through the lens of entrepreneurship. So right now I'm an entrepreneur, and I just kind of go around and I support cause-based businesses or cause-based projects that need assistance. It's kind of been developing their business model.
What would you say is the most rewarding part about what you do now?
The rewarding part would be helping people, which sounds cliche, right? But there is a reward in that, because as I'm helping people, it also helps me strengthen my skills on different projects. I work as a consultant, so every day is different, place to see different things, experience different people and different issues. So what I get out of it is just being able to leave my impact on the projects that I work on and just seeing how those blossom.
Just to wrap this up, we'll go back to the Kidsongs for just a little bit longer. What was your favorite song that you performed while you were doing the videos?
That's easy. It was the barber shop, and I think it was called By the Light of the Silvery Moon or something like that. That would have been my favorite one. That was my favorite song, and also my favorite choreography. One of my favorite overall, because it was fun to perform and so it's good. I love it.
What would you say is the legacy for Kidsongs nowadays?
I don't know. Like I feel like just youthful innocence at that time, and that it's still around, and that people can still access it, even despite age, and people just connect with it because of the songs, and because it was on for a fairly decent amount of time. Yeah, I've been exposed to. So I think the legacy of Kidsongs is that just memory type of thing. I guess that's the best thing I could say.
Well, Kidsongs, the videos that you were in, and pretty much all of them are on the Kidsongs channel on YouTube, and it's very interesting that Kidsongs has its own YouTube channel and uploads all this stuff, but obviously that means people are going to discover it for the first time. So if there's anybody out there who is just starting to see them now, has never seen them before, maybe they weren't born yet when it was on, or maybe they missed it, what would you say to people who are just getting into Kidsongs?
Wow. How would I answer that? I would say sit back and enjoy it. And I would actually encourage them to do what you're doing and like reach out to previous cast and see what we're up to and get these different insights and perspectives of what it was like. I think that would be cool because a lot of us are accessible. I mean, we live in a day and age where you have Facebook and everything like that. It's easy to find people. So I think to complement that experience of watching Kidsongs, because to me, I kind of view it as almost like a little, like we have a little cult following, you know what I mean? Of followers, of fans of Kidsongs. So to kind of extend that experience, I would say like, hey, like reach out to us and see what we're up to, or just something. It's like we're always open to to responding to that.
Well, full disclosure, I didn't have cable for most of my childhood, so most of what I watched was on like PBS or ABC, CBS, whatever. So fortunately, Kidsongs was on. Otherwise, I might not have known you guys existed. But to your other point, yeah, I would like to reach out to others. You know, Chris tagged your co-star Megan in that one post where he posted my interview with him. Megan, if you're listening, I'd love to hear what you're up to these days. I mean, I know you're a nurse, but I'd like to hear your Kidsongs experiences. So, do you have any final thoughts on Kidsongs or about anything? But how would you like to finish this out here?
I would just like to thank you for reaching out and just for kind of revisiting Kidsongs and reaching out to us and to revisit these memories and share it. I can say we definitely had a lot of fun, definitely a lot of great experiences, and Chris is still a buddy of mine. Our families got closer like over the years. It's cool that this is happening, and yeah, just thank you all for listening, and hope you continue to support the show. That's pretty much it for me.
All right, Hassan Nicholas, former Kidsongs kid, thank you so much for taking part in my second Kidsongs interview in 3 episodes. Who knows, maybe this will eventually evolve into a full-time Kidsongs podcast. Probably not, but we can keep our fingers crossed, right?
Right, we can. Thank you so much.
All right, Hassan Nicholas, everybody. So for bonus content and podcast news, you can like the 90s Youth Life Facebook page. You can hear all of my episodes at youthlife90s.podbean.com. I'm Jeffrey Clark for 90s Youth Life. Grow old, but don't grow up.